It's turned out fine today. Yeah, really cracking. It's beautiful amongst these woods when it's fine.
Okay, Don, thanks for joining me today.
Pleasure.
You grew up in this area, and so you're familiar with the legend of Duerston Rock, and you've got your own personal experience as well. Do you want to talk us through that?
Oh yeah, sure. I didn't know about the legend to begin with, but I was told it by a friend when I was about 9 years old. I went to school at Shaw Prior, which is just up the top of the hill there.
Yes.
And the next village on is Water, and the children there go to Shaw Prior School. So there was us down at Shaw Bridge going up to Shaw Prior and the children from Water. I had a particular friend there, Brian Punzak, and it must have been after school one day, decided to go up and visit him, you know, and it was then he told me the story of Dewar the Huntsman. It terrified me. Basically, the first story I heard of Dewar the Huntsman was that he roamed around with his band of whist hounds, yeah, kidnapping unbaptized babies, and then he would take them back to their parents, dead. Really frightening. Now,
at 9 years old, you were
yeah,
that story.
yeah, and well, there is a story that there was a farmer coming back across the moor from the Warren Inn, which was on the edge of the moor, and he saw the huntsman, his band of hounds. He was terrified, but he sort of said, "Well, have you had a good evening's catch?" And the huntsman, with an evil laugh, tossed him a bundle. Yeah, and when he got home, he said to his wife, "I've met the huntsman. He gave me his kill." And he unwrapped the bundle, and there was his baby son, only a few weeks old. Now you can imagine, you know, even now I can feel the sort of hairs on the back of my neck standing on end, but you can imagine how terrified I was, 9 years old, and I had to walk home, and it was just starting to get dark, you know. So I was walking down the hill coming to Shaw Prior, and I was crying. I can remember crying, and there, in the distance, coming out, I could see this figure coming towards me, and I'm quaking. I didn't know whether to run, scream, or what. But then the figure shouted out, and it actually turned out to be Mr. Punzak, Brian's father.
Who told you the story earlier?
Yeah, and you know, he was a very nice man, and he actually escorted me home, you know, and took me home, and so things weren't too bad then. But there's all sorts of stories in this area I could tell you. Let's think. Well, the story of Dewar the Huntsman, we got Francis Drake. A lot of people believe that Francis Drake, or his spirit, was actually Dewar the Huntsman. Right. The reason for that is because Francis Drake, originally, before he became a hero, was actually a pirate. And he had a reputation for being extremely cruel, you know, and you'd never cross Francis Drake. But then, of course, he became a hero when he fought the Armada and that sort of thing. And there's another legend with his drum. When I finished with the primary school up in Shaw Prior, I then went on to Tavistock Grammar School. And I had a friend there whose father was either a curator or a caretaker or something like that at Buckland Monacorum. Now, this was Drake's house. Yeah, and they kept all sorts of artifacts there of Drake, and it was then I was told the legend of Drake's drum. Now, Drake's drum, it's said that when Drake died, and I can't remember the date exactly because I wasn't there, but it was about 1596, and I think it was something like Cadiz, that he lay dying in his cabin. He was dying of dysentery, actually. Yeah, and he said to somebody or other, you know, "Take my drum back to my home, and if ever Britain needs me, the drum will beat, and I will return to save him." Yeah? And they did actually bring it back. And surprisingly enough, there are those who have said they've heard that drum beating. There have been, in the last century, well, of course, the last century for us now is, because it's 2007, is the 1900s. But even before that, it was said that when Napoleon Bonaparte was brought into Plymouth, the drum was beaten then. And then in the last century, it is said to be at the onset of the First World War. Then again, when there was the retreat from Dunkirk, that it's said to be heard by people. And I think the most amazing story about it is when the German battle fleet surrendered at Grass Bay. As the German fleet was sailing in, suddenly there was this beating of the drums. And the captain of the British warship sent his men to search the ship to find the drummer. Yeah? But they couldn't find anything at all. And so they searched and searched. And then as the German battleship dropped anchor, the drumming ceased. They did another search then, and they still couldn't find it.
Yeah. What about the story of the Marine up at Jewstone Rock?
Well, back in my day, the Royal Marines from Bickley, I think it's 42 Commando, they used to train on the Jewstone Rock. Yeah, they used to come out here. They'd come out with their kit, and they'd run up and down the Jewstone. In fact, on the river there was a couple of ropes that used to go across. That we used to follow them, even though we were little kids, and we'd do most anything they would do. And it was actually quite fun. I remember one occasion, only it happened on one occasion, a officer, I was sort of hanging around them, asked me if there was anywhere they could set up camp. And as it happened, the old clay works, which of course is now nothing but a ruin, had an old house there where the Punsacks lived when we first moved here. And it was now empty because the Punsac had moved to Water. So I suggested they use that as their HQ. And they liked it so much, the officer said, would you like to come out on the exercise with us? Excellent. And great, yeah. And he came with me to my parents and asked their permission, which is only right, you should do. And all that night I sort of crouched down behind the river, down by the bridge I mean, and fired the Veery pistol to start the exercise off and to finish it off. It was a really great fun that, and wonderful for a young lad. But this particular occasion, the thing about really terrified me. The Royal Marines used to climb on the Devil's Rock. Yeah, there's 3 pinnacles actually. One's called the Buttress, one's called the Devil's Rock. I'm not sure what the other one is. It's got another name, but it doesn't really matter. And they used to practice climbing, as people still do. They still use it for climbing practice. On this particular occasion, I was somewhere down by the bridge, I seem to remember, and these Marines came and they were carrying one of their number on a stretcher. And this poor guy was in agony. You could see it, and they were saying, or he was saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it was quite terrifying to listen to. But anyway, I went up and I said, is there anything I can do to help? And they said, well, the only thing you could do is if you go back to the bottom of the Devil's Rock and pick up his boots, his climbing boots, because they'd left them behind. So I went along to the Devil's Rock, and of course it was starting to get dark by now, and it was really dusk. And I searched around until I found these boots, and I reached down for them, picked them up, and they're all sticky. I looked at them close, and they were covered with blood. I turned, still with the boots in my hand, and ran like the devil, because I was so terrified. Because there is another Doer the Huntsman tale where he goes out with his whist hounds. Now the whist hounds, in the legends I've heard, are white, and they've got fiery red eyes and red ears. And on stormy nights, they chase unwary travellers and they lead them over the Devil's Rock. So he, being the devil, he just disappears. But the travellers go over the cliff and fall down and kill. Whether I was thinking of that as I was running away with these pair of boots in my hand, I don't know.
At 14 years old, I can imagine you've been thinking all sorts of things.
Oh God, yes, it really was a terrifying moment.
Thanks very much, Don, for sharing your stories with us today. That's been absolutely fascinating.
Pleasure.